Morning in the Arizona territory rises quiet as a hell breath. Light spilling over the redstone mesas like warm honey poured by an unseen hand. The kind of dawn that feels older than scripture, older than memory, older than every name ever whispered across the desert wind. And somewhere beneath that glowing sky, Elias Calder waits. He stands beside a lonely stagecoach post, boots planted in dusty earth that remembers every rider who ever came before, and every rider who never returned. The man is not old, but loneliness has a way of carving lines along the spirit before it ever touches the face. Elias wears those invisible lines, etched softly, like a map someone drew with fading ink. He keeps glancing toward the road, as if hoping to catch the earliest shimmer of metal under sunlight, or the faint trembling of wheels carrying a promise toward him. For the third morning in a row, he rises before the sun and waits for the stagecoach that will bring him the woman he has never met, yet dared to hope for, not for beauty, not for desire, but for the simple ache of companionship, for a voice to greet at dawn, for hands to share the quiet labor, for an evening meal that feels less like a ritual and more like a home. He is not ashamed of wanting these things, but he rarely speaks them aloud, because men like him were raised to carry their longing, the same way they carried their rifles, tight to the chest, never shown, never discussed, always heavy. The desert wind shifts, carrying the faint cry of a hawk overhead, and Elias closes his eyes a moment, praying the same prayer he whispered last night and the night before. Let this be the day. Behind him lies the Calder Ranch, a patch of stubborn green refusing to surrender to the hungry desert, a house made of weathered wood, a barn that leans slightly to the east, as if tired, as if wishing someone would come steady it. Inside, a table sits set for two, because Maeve Dunn insisted it should, and no one argues with Maeve, not when she has that mothering glint in her eyes. Maeve Dunn, keeper of the general store, keeper of half the town's secrets, and guardian angel to stubborn men who don't know they need one. She had clapped Elias on the shoulder yesterday, and said in that voice that brooks no nonsense, "Elias, you best shave that scruff before the poor girl thinks we've sent her to a wild animal." Jonas Pike, sheriff, boyhood friend, equal parts trouble and good intentions, leaned over from where he sat on Maeve's porch and added, "She won't last 5 seconds if she can't handle the smell of horse and soap on you." Elias only smiled, small, polite, shy, the kind of smile that keeps its secrets tucked away. Jonas had always been the louder one, the bold one, the man who filled rooms effortlessly, while Elias preferred corners and open fields. Yet Jonas clapped him on the back, and Maeve kissed his cheek, and both said the same thing. "This is your new beginning. Don't you ruin it with worry." He tried, truly tried, to believe them. Now, back at the lonely post beside the empty road, Elias stands with the desert stretching around him, wide and endless, like a great silent witness, watching his hope rise and fall with each passing breath. He takes off his hat, runs a hand through his hair, and tries to imagine the face of the woman who will arrive. Maybe she has soft eyes, gentle hands, a nervous smile that mirrors his own, someone who has known a life of small hurts and wants something quieter, something steadier, someone who won't mind the slow rhythm of his days, or the way he speaks only when thoughts have ripened enough to be worth saying. Someone who might one day, after many patient moons, think of him with quiet fondness. He does not hope for love. Love is too grand a word, too towering a dream. He only hopes for comfort, companionship, and a future that no longer echoes with the hollow sound of one set of footsteps. The sun rises higher, the heat gathers, and Elias's heart begins its familiar sinking. Perhaps she will not come today. Perhaps she changed her mind, or the coach broke a wheel, or the agency forgot him completely. Then, a tremor through the earth, a low distant rumbling, a dust cloud blooming on the horizon. Elias's breath catches. The stagecoach. He straightens, wipes his palms on his trousers, and stands tall, heart beating like hooves against ribs. The coach approaches, Horses glistening under the rising sun. Driver flicking reins with practiced ease. Metal creaking like an old fiddle tuning itself. Maeve and Jonas appear behind Elias. Faces glowing. Ready to witness the beginning of a life they've wanted for him. The coach slows. Dust curling around it like a veil. Wheels crunching the dry ground. Until it finally stops. Elias steps forward. Hat in hand. Heart in throat. The driver nods at him. Then gestures toward the coach door. Elias turns. Hands trembling slightly. As he prepares to greet the woman he has waited months for. The door swings open. Light pours inside. A shadow fills the frame. And the world, for one suspended breath, goes completely still. It is not a bonnet he sees. Not a small gloved hand grasping the doorway. Not the timid shape of a mail-order bride stepping into a new life. Instead, a figure emerges. So tall his head nearly grazes the frame. Broad shoulders wrapped in woven cloth. Skin bronzed by sun and story. Braids falling down like dark rivers framed by beads and feathers. Gasps rise from the small crowd. Maeve grips Jonas's arm. Jonas instinctively reaches for the badge on his chest. And Elias, frozen mid-breath, feels something in his soul tilt off balance. The man steps fully onto the ground. Boots firmly planted. Eyes steady and deep as canyon shadows. His presence is not loud, and yet it fills the space. Like a mountain appearing where there was once only horizon. He stands twice Elias's height, twice his breadth, a warrior by nature, a peacekeeper by choice. In his large hand, he holds a sealed letter. He offers it to Elias. Slowly, respectfully, head bowed just slightly, a gesture of humility, not submission. Elias takes it, fingers brushing rough skin that carries both strength and sorrow. The driver clears his throat, as if to cut through the disbelief thick in the air. Agency sent him. Mix-up in the paperwork. Bride married someone else before leaving Boston. They didn't want you to be left without help, so they sent this man instead. Said he works for them time to time. Escort. Guide. Protector. The words feel distant. Muffled. Like sound underwater. Elias looks up at the towering figure, who waits in silence. Not asking for fear, or apology, or acceptance, only waiting for direction. The wind stirs between them, hot and restless. The letter trembles in Elias's hand. And so does the future he thought he was stepping into. Maeve whispers, "Lord have mercy." Jonas mutters something gruff, but even his voice lacks its usual swagger. Elias swallows, the dryness in his throat turning his next words into a quiet rasp. "You're here for me?" The towering stranger gives a slow nod. Eyes unreadable. Gentle. Watchful. He speaks. His voice deep. Steady. A river running through stone. "I'm Tawakai. I walk with thunder. I was told you needed help. Until your bride could be found again." Elias's heart twists. Not with fear. Not entirely. But with a strange stirring of destiny. As if the universe had replaced one path with another. Without asking permission, he looks at the letter again, then at the massive man who stands before him. Sunlight turning his braids to shining obsidian. Elias exhales, a long soft breath, letting go of all the expectations he carried like fragile glass. This is not the arrival he hoped for, but maybe, just maybe, it is the one he needed. He steps aside, gesturing toward the open land of his ranch. Voice barely above a whisper. "Come with me." Tawakai. The giant nods. And together, they begin walking toward a future neither asked for. But both are destined to share. And as they disappear into the shimmering heat, the narrator's voice settles over the scene like dust on an old diary page. Sometimes the wrong arrival is simply the beginning of the right story. Tawakai's footsteps fall heavy beside Elias. Not heavy with threat, but with the weight of a life traveled mostly alone. The desert seems to hush itself, as if listening to the strange, new rhythm of two men, walking side by side, one small as a quiet prayer, the other large as the mountain that answers it. The ranch unfolds before them in slow strokes, a patchwork of fences, wind-bent grass, an earth that remembers drought better than rain. Tawakai studies everything, not with suspicion, but with a deep reverence, as though he is greeting the land, and waiting for the land to greet him back. Elias had expected awkwardness, expected tension, expected fear, but instead he finds a silence that feels settled, like dust finally deciding where to land. They reach the barn, and Tawakai stops, lifting his head slightly, as if listening to something Elias cannot hear. When he steps inside, the horses do not startle, do not shy, do not rear. They look at him, an inch closer, as though drawn by something ancient, something safe. Elias watches in quiet awe, hands loosely gripping the barn rail, feeling a strange twist in his chest, a sense of humility and wonder, and something even softer, something he doesn't have a name for yet. Tawakai places one massive hand on the nearest horse. Its nose fits in his palm like a child settling into a story. The animal breathes deep, slow, peaceful. Elias murmurs, barely loud enough for himself. They trust you fast. Tawakai doesn't turn, doesn't boast, only answers in a voice low and steady. Animals know the truth of a man, no matter what shape he wears. Elias swallows, because somehow the words feel like they were meant for him too. For the first days, their lives fall into an unspoken rhythm. Elias rises early, as he always has, to mend fences, check water troughs, walk the fields. But now, when he steps out into the cool dawn, he sees Tawakai already awake, already moving, already humming something ancient under his breath. A melody like earth cracking after rain. A melody that seems to settle the morning air itself. At first the sound surprises Elias. So deep it vibrates in the ribs. So gentle it smooths the edges of thought. But soon, he begins to wait for it. A soft ritual, before the sun crests the mesas. Tawakai's presence on the ranch is quiet, steady, like the shadow of a great tree, cooling everything beneath it. And yet, in those early days, they misunderstand each other more than they know. Elias assumes the man's silence is judgment, that those deep, unreadable eyes are measuring him, finding him lacking, too soft, too shy, too small. Tawakai assumes Elias's timid posture is fear of him, or mistrust, or the uncertainty of a man who has known little danger. So they orbit each other, careful, polite, each thinking the other is something he is not. Two opposite shapes, trying to fit inside the same quiet. One afternoon, the sun hot enough to shimmer the air. Elias struggles with a fence post, the wood refusing to sit level, his frustration tightening his jaw. Tawakai approaches silently, lifting the post with one hand, as though lifting a fallen branch. Elias steps back, feeling foolish, feeling small. But Tawakai does not laugh, does not smirk, does not speak with superiority. He simply sets the post straight, presses it into the earth, and says, "The ground listens, but only if you press with patience." A lesson disguised as advice, a kindness disguised as strength. Elias exhales, something in him loosening. Their eyes meet, for just a breath, and the distance between them shifts, just a little, like the first crack of ice at the start of spring. It is Maeve Dunn who first notices the change, when she rides out with a basket of bread and a glare sharp enough to cut tin. Elias looks better, she says, less hollow behind the eyes, more anchored. Jonas Pike notices too, though he's less poetic about it. More backbone in your posture, Calder. Maybe having a walking mountain beside you fix your spine. Elias blushes. Tawakai simply nods. People in town begin to soften as well. Children stare with wide eyes, but their fear melts quickly, replaced with fascination, especially when Tawakai carves small wooden animals with effortless precision, leaving them on the porch rail for tiny hands to discover. Old men nod at him respectfully. Women offer him cool water and bread, and slowly, the harsh glances fade, like dust settling after a passing storm. But the real shift happens one night, under a sky so full of stars. It seems the heavens have spilled their jewelry across the dark. Elias sits on the porch, legs stretched out, hands wrapped around a tin cup, staring into the kind of quiet only the West knows how to make. Tawakai joins him, settling down heavily, the boards creaking under his weight. Yet somehow the sound is comforting, like an old house sighing after a long day. The silence between them is long, but not tense, not empty, just two men, sitting with their thoughts, letting the night breathe around them. Then Elias speaks, soft, unsure, as though the words have been waiting a long time. I ain't good at talking, not like Jonas, or most folks. Never was. Tawakai listens, his profile outlined by starlight, his presence steady as bedrock. Elias continues. I think I talk slow, feel slow. I never mind it. But people do. They want more noise than I can make. The confession hangs in the air, exposed, fragile. Tawakai turns his head, studies Elias a moment, then answers. The turtle moves slowly, yet its shell can withstand the teeth of the wolf. Strength is not in the noise a man makes, but in the way he carries his quiet. The words settle over Elias, like a gentle hand touching his shoulder, steadying him, reminding him he is not small, not weak, only different. Elias looks down, eyes stinging, not with sadness, but with recognition. No one has ever understood him so simply, so cleanly, without asking him to change. The moment is brief, but it reshapes something inside him. Days stretch into weeks, and the land begins to mirror the bond forming between them. Work gets easier. Laughs appear where silence once sat. Meals shared become rituals, not obligations. Elias begins to expect Tawakai's presence beside him, like expecting the sunrise, like expecting breath. And Tawakai, for the first time in many years, allows himself to rest, to soften, to trust the soil beneath his feet. But one evening, as the fire paints warm light across his face, he finally shares the story carried in the scars along his arms. Not told dramatically, not told for pity, simply spoken, the way one releases a burden back into the earth. He once had a wife, gentle as rain, sharp as stone, a woman whose laughter could turn a hard day soft. Their village was small, peaceful, until a militia rode through one night, blaming the people for a theft that never happened. Vengeance taken on innocence. His wife, his heart, was taken in that fire. He searched for purpose after, but found only wandering, work that kept his hands busy, so his grief would not swallow him whole. Elias listens, silent, moved in a way he cannot fully understand. He does not offer platitudes. He does not reach out in pity. He simply sits beside Tawakai, letting the man speak his truth, letting the fire swallow the rest. When Tawakai finishes, the desert wind rises, soft and mourning, as if paying its respects. Elias whispers, I'm sorry, not for the tragedy, but because pain deserves to be witnessed. Even years later, Tawakai nods, a slow, steady motion. You listen well, he says, as though it is rare, as though it is precious. Elias lowers his eyes, a warmth spreading through his chest. In the following days, their companionship deepens, no longer born of circumstance, but of choice, of respect, of two wounded spirits recognizing each other. Without needing words, the ranch feels fuller, as though the land itself approves, as though fate has begun to weave something between them, quiet and sturdy. And by the time the third week rolls in, Elias realizes a truth that startles him, but does not frighten him. He does not want Tawakai to leave. Not yet, maybe not ever, though he doesn't speak it aloud. The wish sits inside him, like a warm stone held in two hands. Something precious, something healing, and somewhere deep in the desert's breath. The story's next chapter waits, already unfolding, already turning its page. But for now, under a sky of endless stars, two men sit, not as strangers, not as employer and hired hand, but as something simpler, something older. Two souls, learning the shape of companionship. One still mourning, one long sunset, at a time. The third week drifts by like a feather carried in a lazy breeze. Small days, quiet days, each one stitched with a comfort Elias has never known. The evenings, Long and Gold find the two men sitting on the porch, sharing silence like bread, letting the land do the talking, letting the fireflies paint their slow, wandering stories in the dusk. Elias has grown used to the low hum of Tawakai's voice in the mornings, the soft thud of his steps on the barn floor, the steady shadow he casts beside him while they mend fences, or walk the ridgeline, or eat meals that feel less lonely than the ones he grew up on. And what surprises Elias most is that this comfort feels natural, not stolen, not borrowed, not fragile, just right, like finding water in a place where you'd stop hoping to. It is on a heat-heavy afternoon, when clouds curl low, threatening rain they will not deliver. That distant wheels begin to echo across the open land, a sound Elias hasn't heard in weeks. The stagecoach. He stiffens, heart thudding, a strange blend of hope and dread rising in him. Jonas Pike rides up moments later, dust swirling around his horse's legs, his expression tight, as if he knows something Elias doesn't yet understand. She's coming, Jonas says. Your bride, Catherine Hale. Elias feels the name settle over his skin, like a coat he forgot he ever owned, like a duty he isn't sure he wants anymore. He glances at Tawakai, who stands near the barn, a saddle hoisted easily in his massive arms, eyes unreadable, quiet, watchful. Something inside Elias trembles, not because he expects love from Catherine, but because, for the first time, he isn't sure he needs what he once begged the universe for. But the stagecoach arrives, and the dust of his old hope rises with it. Catherine Hale steps down, with the grace of someone raised far from dirt roads and desert winds. Her dress crisp, her gloves spotless, her chin tilted slightly upward, as if she has spent her life being taught to look down at things. So nothing can look down at her. Her eyes sweep the ranch, the house, the fields, and in that breath, Elias sees disappointment bloom on her face, quiet but sharp, like frost forming on warm glass. He steps forward, hands nervously clasped, voice small but sincere. Welcome, Miss Hale. I'm Elias. She offers him her hand, light as paper, cold as a stored memory, and speaks in a voice soft but distant. This is smaller than I expected. The words cut without volume. A polite blade, meant to wound without leaving visible marks. Elias tries to smile, tries to soften the moment, but the smile falters halfway through. Behind him, the barn door creaks, and Tawakai steps out. The moment Catherine sees him, her entire body goes rigid, eyes widening, lips pressing into a thin line of fear and disgust. She steps sharply behind Elias, as though his slight frame could shield her from someone twice his size. She whispers, "Is that an Apache?" Here, the sentence lands heavy, ugly, like a stone dropped in a still pond. Tawakai stops walking, his expression unchanged, but something in the air tightens, strained, as if the land itself holds its breath. Elias feels heat rise in his chest, a strange instinct to defend the man beside him. But words tangle on his tongue. Tawakai remains silent, watching Catherine, not with anger, but with the quiet resignation of a man who has lived many lifetimes inside others' fear. Maeve Dunn stands nearby, eyes narrowed, judging Catherine harder than any sheriff ever judged an outlaw. Over the next 2 days, Catherine moves through the ranch like a ghost of silk and disapproval. She avoids the barn entirely, with its smell of animals and honest work. She avoids Tawakai more, as though he carries a storm on his shoulders, instead of the gentleness Elias sees every day. She finds fault in everything. The house is too plain, the meals too simple, the desert too wild, the nights too dark, and Elias. She finds him too quiet, too slow, too unsure, too himself. He tries to speak gently, try to welcome her, try to offer comfort, but she does not want comfort, only escape, only superiority, only control. She watches Elias the way one watches a chore that must be done, not a life that might be shared. And the more she criticizes, the smaller Elias feels. Shrinking into old corners he thought he'd grown past. Corners carved by a lifetime of being told he was not enough. Not strong enough. Not bold enough. Not loud enough. Tawakai watches from a distance, eyes darkening each time Catherine's voice cuts across the ranch like a cold knife. But he does not interfere. Not yet. This is Elias's battle, his past, his wound reopening before his eyes. On the fourth evening, the sun descends in shades of amber and rose, painting the sky soft enough to heal any ache, except the one spreading in Elias's chest. Catherine approaches him, arms folded, jaw tight. Elias, I have been thinking, and I must be honest. You are not the man I expected. He swallows, his heartbeat loud in his ears. She continues, you do not command a room. You barely command your own voice. I came all this way, hoping for stability, for a man with presence. And here you are, quiet as a shadow, small as your ranch. The words hit him like a slow, cold rain. Not harsh, but relentless. Tawakai stands several yards away, near the corral, silent. But Elias feels his attention. Steady, protective. Catherine's gaze flicks toward the giant man, and her lip curls. And this, she says, you allow this man here, in your home, near me. It is improper, dangerous, wild. Elias feels something inside him break. Not violently, not loudly, but like a rope fraying one thread at a time, until the last one snaps. He murmurs, voice quiet, but shaking. He's done nothing but help. He's been nothing but good to me, to the land, to the animals. Catherine shakes her head. He is not civilized, and neither are you if you think this arrangement is acceptable. The shame she tries to wrap him in is the shame he wore his whole childhood. And yet, now, it no longer fits. It slips from him, like a coat that has finally grown too small. He whispers, I ask for someone kind. I hope for someone gentle, someone patient, someone willing to see me, not to remake me. Catherine inhales sharply, as if offended by his softness, by his truth. I cannot stay, she says, and the words sound more like relief than heartbreak. She turns, walks away, never looking back, leaving Elias standing in the dimming light. Small, still, quiet, but not broken. Not this time. Not with Tawakai watching. Not with the desert holding him steady. That night, Elias doesn't cry, doesn't rage, doesn't collapse. He simply sits on the porch, hands open on his knees, letting the evening settle around him, letting the disappointment bleed into the air, instead of into himself. Tawakai approaches, steps slow, presence warm. He doesn't ask what happened, doesn't offer platitudes, doesn't move to replace the ache with his own words. He simply sits, beside Elias, silent, solid, an anchor placed gently in the shifting sand. Elias feels the heat of the man beside him, not overwhelming, not intrusive, just steady, a reminder that he is not alone, not forgotten, not invisible. And in that soft quiet, without looking up, Elias whispers, a confession too heavy to hold inside any longer. I thought she'd make me feel less alone, but I never felt more so than with her here. Tawakai's voice comes low, a soft thunder rolling over the porch. A woman who cannot see your spirit will never fill the emptiness in your home. Elias closes his eyes, breath trembling, as the truth settles deep. Warm, healing, he leans forward, resting his elbows on his knees, and lets out a long, slow exhale. He thinks he should feel broken, but he doesn't, not fully, because the man beside him has seen his worth in ways he didn't know how to show the world. And as the stars rise, scattering silver across the dark, the narrator's voice returns, soft as memory. Sometimes the heart does not shatter. When love fails, sometimes it shatters, because it finally understands what love was supposed to feel like. The morning after Catherine leaves, the ranch feels different, lighter in places, heavier in others. Elias wakes early, skin still carrying the echo of the quiet night on the porch, where Tawakai sat beside him, steady as the land. The sun rises pale gold over the horizon, spreading warmth in gentle fingers, touching the fields, the fences, the open sky, and finally Elias's face, He stands there, shirt half-buttoned, boots unlaced, looking across the expanse of land he once feared he could never manage. But the fear doesn't sit as heavy anymore. Not while Tawakai's presence lingers like a promise. Not spoken, not claimed, but felt, everywhere. The morning chores begin as they always do, with the low groan of the barn door, the rustle of hay, the quiet thump of horses shifting in their stalls. Elias and Tawakai work side by side, not talking much, but their silences no longer feel like separate rooms. They feel like one shared space. Elias steals glances sometimes, just to see the way sunlight lands on Tawakai's shoulders, or the way his hair falls when he leans forward, or the way his hands, large, unhurried, move with care around the animals. But each time, he looks away too fast, heart drumming, fear mixing with something warm and frighteningly sweet. By noon, the sky grows strange, shadows gathering in the distance. Not storm clouds, but dust, rising, shaking, moving fast. Tawakai notices first, lifts his head, eyes narrowing at the horizon. Riders, he murmurs. Elias feels the air tighten, chest constricting. He knows who it must be. The Hale brothers, Catherine's kin, rough men, known for short tempers, and quicker guns, and a loyalty to family that often turned cruel. Elias's breath stutters. They'll think I sent her away, or mistreated her, or Tawakai steps close, his height casting a protective shade over Elias. His voice low, steady. You did nothing wrong, but they may not care. The riders approach fast, dust billowing around them, anger already carved into their silhouettes. Elias stands frozen, until Tawakai's hand brushes his shoulder, a touch meant to ground him. And somehow, it does. The Hale brothers arrive in a whirl of dust and noise, their horses stamping the earth, their voices loud, sharp, accusatory. The eldest, Reuben Hale, points at Elias, spitting words like bullets. You embarrass our sister. You drag her out on a fool's errand, to a nothing ranch, with a nothing man, and let her walk away humiliated. Elias flinches, but Tawakai steps forward, a wall of solid strength, eyes dark and unreadable. Back away, he says, voice deep as thunder rolling over distant mountains. Reuben's eyes widen, then narrow, recognition turning to instant hostility. And you, he snarls, you keeping company with savages now, Elias? Is that why she left? The insult lands like a slap. Elias's heart lurches, fear collapsing inward, then swelling outward as something braver. He stands straighter, swallowing the tremble in his voice. She left because she wanted someone loud, not someone kind, someone commanding, not someone patient, someone she could shape, not someone she could know. His voice grows steadier, heat warming it. I cannot be the man she imagined, and I shouldn't have to be. The Hale brothers laugh, but there's no humor in it, only mean edges, sharp enough to draw blood. Reuben sneers. Then you're useless, a waste, a coward who hides behind. He jerks his chin at Tawakai, the savage you're too scared to stand apart from. Something in Elias ignites, a spark he didn't know he had. I'm not hiding behind him, he says, and for the first time, his voice carries weight, real weight. I stand with him. The words leave his mouth before he can trap them, before he can consider what they reveal. He feels them burn his tongue, his chest, his truth, all at once. Reuben's face darkens. He shifts his hand toward his gun, but Tawakai moves first, not drawing a weapon, just stepping, calmly, between Elias and the brothers. His stance unyielding, a human shield, a quiet declaration of where he stands. Reuben spits at the ground. Fine, let's see how long this place stands. With you two playing house out here. He yanks his horse around, his brothers following, dust rising like smoke behind them as they ride off, leaving threats scattered in their wake. When the dust finally settles, Elias realizes he's shaking, hands trembling, knees weak. Tawakai turns to him, eyes softening. You spoke truth, even in fear. This shows strength. Elias lets out a breath, and it comes out half laugh, half sob. I didn't mean to say it. Not like that. Not in front of them. Tawakai tilts his head. Then how did you mean it? Elias's breath catches. Because the man is close. So close. The heat of him. The scent of earth and smoke. The steady calm in his presence. All of it feels like a gravitational pull. He steps back, but only barely. Voice breaking. I don't know. I don't want them thinking I'm ashamed. Of you. Of us. Of whatever this is. Even if I don't fully understand it yet. His chest tightens. Eyes stinging. Tawakai's expression shifts. Gentle. Wounded. Hopeful. Careful. All at once. He lifts a hand. Slow. So slow. Giving Elias room to move away. But Elias doesn't. Not this time. Tawakai brushes his knuckles along Elias's jaw. A touch so soft it feels like a prayer whispered across skin. Then understand this. Tawakai murmurs. Voice deep. Warm. Steady. You are not alone here. Not in your home. Not in your spirit. Not in your heart. Elias's breath shatters. Quiet and raw. But what if I feel things I don't know how to carry? What if I feel things I shouldn't? Tawakai's thumb grazes the corner of his jaw. And what if those things are not meant to be carried alone? What if they are meant to be shared? Elias's heart leaps. Fear tangling with tenderness. And something that feels dangerously like longing. He whispers, barely audible. I don't want you to go. Not ever. Tawakai closes his eyes, as if steadying himself, before leaning in, slowly, carefully, letting his forehead rest against Elias's. Their breaths mingle, their silhouettes framed by open sky, and the moment becomes a quiet storm. Charged, waiting, Tawakai murmurs, I will not go, unless you ask me to. Elias shakes his head, voice breaking. I won't. I can't. I want you here, with me. Not because I'm scared, not because I'm lonely, but because you make me feel seen, in ways I didn't know I needed. Tawakai's breath trembles, and for the first time, Elias hears something fragile beneath the strength. And you make me feel found. Their foreheads touch, their hands hover, their hearts stumble into the same rhythm. And then, only then, Elias leans that last inch, letting truth close the distance words could not. A soft, hesitant, aching kiss. Warm, slow, gentle, like dawn opening over dark land. A promise formed in silence. Not rushed, not forced, just real. Just them. That night, they sit on the porch again, shoulders brushing in quiet understanding. The stars blink awake, and the desert breathes. And Elias feels something he hasn't felt since childhood. Home. Not the ranch. Not the land. Not the house. The person beside him. The story ends here. But the life between them is just beginning. A life built not from loneliness, but from the courage to let someone stay. To let someone love. Gently. Slowly. Truly.